Shalom, shalom. First, I want to start by giving infinite praise, honor, and glory to yahawah, bahasham, yahawashi, bahasham, qadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone that rule well, teach well, do 100% truth and sincerity. Peace, blessings, and salutations to the hopeful elect, which in is the Israelite foreigners that were scattered amongst. To you and only to you I say shalom. It's your brother Atham here from the Great Millstone DC branch, coming to you with an impromptu lesson through the spirit and truth of yahawah, bahasham, yahawashi. And jumping straight into it, this is the book of Psalms, chapter 7 and verse 15. It says, he made a pit and digged it, and is falling into the ditch which he made. And yeah, what sparked this lesson was the title, the ditch of destruction, which in you're seeing this ditch, this so-called land of the free, land of the great Babylon, which is the land of confusion, okay, is now starting to be torn down. Okay, they shall build up, but the Lord Yahawah bahasham yahawashi shall tear it down. And through the words of prophecy, what is going on is something you cannot turn back. Okay, you have the enemies, building ditches, setting traps, snares, to what? To catch and oppress and furthermore afflict the Israelites and the Israelite foreigners that were scattered amongst. And ultimately, the wicked that ruleth over this world has no care for the Lord's people, any of you other nations, even his own people. Okay? And this is why the Lord Yahawah bahasham yahawashi is causing them to fall into their own traps, to fall into their own traps, which they set. Okay? And a quick precept to back that up. This is Psalms 57 and verse 6. They have prepared a net for my steps. They prepared a trap to catch and furthermore afflict the men of the Lord, man. All right? The men of the Lord, the apostles, the elders, the like-minded brothers that dwell in the spirit of Yahawah bahasham yahawashi are doing the work, right? Believing, having the faith to even do these internet epistles. And what do? They shadow ban brothers' pages. Okay, they take down videos. They send agents out to the camps, right? They go into these different, nations, these different lands, and take world leaders. They steal the resources. Okay, this land here, which we have to dwell, on. It was made through bloodshed. Okay? And I'm going to get that just before I continue on. In the book of Nahum, chapter 3, in verse 1, it says, woe to the bloody city. It is all full of lies and robbery. The prey departeth not. And who is the prey and who is the predator? The prey is you Israelites, man. Okay? Whether you look, like a so-called, black, Hispanic, or Native American, or whether you look like these other nations. If your father's bloodline goes back into, the 12 tribes, from Judah all the way down into Issachar, you are of the biblical lineage of being an Israelite through your father's seed line. Okay? And what? The rulers that ruleth over this world, they pray and seek out the lives of the Lord's people, right? And this is why you have to be paying attention, watching, because you can't be friends with your enemy. And this is something that these other nations are starting to learn, because they were hand in hand with Esau. Okay? They thought that they were allies and friends because they had bills in place Okay, they were funding different wars, right? They were funding these things, causing, and protecting certain lands. But now, things of tension are starting to ramp up. Which then, through the Spirit, the Lord Yahawah bahasham yahawashi is revealing these things. Okay, Psalms 57 and verse 6. They have prepared a net for my steps. My soul is bowed down. They have digged a pit before me, into the midst whereof they are fallen themselves. Salah. And yeah, man, the water Yahawah bahasham yahawashi, that, he's causing them to fall in those same pits and traps and snares within, they have set before, the men of the Lord. All right? Because when it comes down into it, it's about to get worse. It's about to get worse, man. And this is why you have to understand, man. Who, like the scripture's about to tell you, man, who perished that's innocent? You should be doing all you can to rehearse the righteous acts. Okay, doing all you can to uphold yourselves. Because if you are, seeking Yahawah bahasham yahawashi, if you are seeking out after righteousness, you will be upholding yourselves through rehearsing the righteous acts, preparing yourselves for these times that we're about to come into, which is a time that you have never seen before. Okay? Job 4 and verse 7. Remember, I pray thee, whoever perished being innocent, or where were the righteous cut off? Even as I have seen, they that plow iniquity and sow wickedness reap the same. And who is he that plow iniquity and sow wickedness? Esau, Edom, man, these wicked rulers. The earth was given into the hands of the wicked. Okay, and they're going to reap the same. When the Lord sends forth, utter destruction, causing these other nations to turn their nuclear capabilities towards this place of confusion, it's gonna be like a lake of fire, man. Lord's gonna rain fervent heat upon this place. And the Lord continue on, Job 4 and verse 9. By the blast of Yahawah bahasham yahawashi they perish, and by the breath of his nostrils are they consumed. And yet, this word is like a roaring fire. Okay? And ultimately, it's going to play out to be a physical fire to burn this place. Whether it's the laser beams from the chariots, or it's the fervent heat from those ICBM thermonuclear missiles, man. Those intercontinental ballistic missiles that are going to hit this place and rain over this place, man. Okay? So this is a quick one. This is a quick article. It says China loads over 100 nuclear ICBMs into silos. This was reported ending off the year, man. So what are they doing? Preparing for war. It says China has probably loaded more than 100 of its nuclear-armed solid-fueled DF-31 intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, into 3 silo fields near its border with Mongolia. A new draft Pentagon report saying, according to Reuters, So they're getting reports on these things, man. All right, they're reporting it. That China's ramping up its nuclear capability. Okay, he's loading up, preparing to what? To turn it and seek out, how to protect itself, but ultimately to flaunt his power, man. Okay, it says the draft reports, which could still change, also assesses that China does not want to have talks on arms control. And yeah, man, these other nations, are not trying to hear it anymore. All right? They're not trying to, negotiate or come to an agreement with you nations, man. Especially, this land of confusion, United Snakes of America, DJ Trump, all right? He's not trying to have a talk with him. And it's beautiful because it shows how, a house being divided, because they were once, at agreement. Now they're not at agreement. And it shows that this house, within this land that have been built off of war, okay, are not going to be able to uphold itself for very much longer. All the rumors of wars and talks of wars are going to soon eventually play out when the Lord Yahawashi causes all nations to gather themselves in the valley of Jehoshaphat, man, or the valley of Yahawashi. All right. Continuing on, it says Reuters reported, as is hoped for by President Donald Trump, who is pushing for denuclearization with Beijing as well as Russia and North Korea. As a permanent member of the UN Security Council and a responsible nuclear weapon state, China has always adhered to the path of peaceful development, pursued a policy of no first use of nuclear weapons, maintained a defense nuclear strategy. And so, they're setting up for defense, right? But you have these other nations that are, on offense, such as you're seeing, United Snakes of America go into lands, still world leaders come in with their green lights, their different soldiers at night. By the time you wake up, you have, firearms in your face, right? And they're soldiers, or they're so-called, elite warriors of this time, with their modern day sword. Okay? But eventually it's not going to be defense. It's going to turn into offense from these other nations. And it says, kept its nuclear forces at the minimum level required for national security and abided by its commitment to a moratorium of nuclear testing. They had a commitment within, they were upholding. But now, like the article is saying, Trump has recently accused China of conducting secret nuclear tests and threatened that the U.S. will resume its own. This is a battle of who has the biggest, kahunas, But it's going to show eventually that, none of you guys are, bigger than the next. Because what? Bahasham yahawashi is he that judgeth and maketh war. Okay? So a quick one to end it off. This is Matthew's. And I'm at the plantation. It just was on my spirit to get it and bring it out. Matthew's 24 and verse 6. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Yeah, man, all these rumors of wars and all this, man, look, the Lord's going to ramp it up more and more. Tension is going to rise between these different nations. Okay? And eventually, the Lord, Yahawashi, is going to cause them to make a move. But he said unto you, men that seek him, to be not troubled. Because all these things shall come to pass, but the end is not yet. It's more prophecies that got to come to pass. All right? And it says, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. And these things will occur. Famines, pestilence, earthquakes. You're gonna eventually see and understand that it's gonna be a famine of the word, but also, the tension between these other nations are gonna rise up. You're seeing, Bibles be taken, from the border, when you come into a different nation. If not, they incarcerate you, So they're trying their hardest to push forth, the famine of the word, to push forth tension against, the true believers of yahawah, bahasham, yahawashi. So, Lord's willing was just, quick edifying lesson through the spirit and truth of our Lord and Savior, yahawah, bahasham, yahawashi, bahasham, qadash, shanya kabab, gawala rakwab, zakwanya nawa ba'aith. And remember, man, continue to watch and take heed. Okay? Shalom.